Hey everybody, it's time to do another Enforcer Hall of Fame induction video, and it was really bugging me that I hadn't put this person into this Hall of Fame yet because they absolutely deserve it. One of the most well-known enforcers of the of NHL history, but certainly of the late 80s and early 90s. And today it is Joey Kocur going into the Enforcer Hall of Fame. Kocur, definitely best known as a Detroit Red Wing and playing alongside Bob Probert when through the mid to late 80s and early 90s when really Detroit was one of the absolute toughest teams in the league. So Joey Kocur played 820 career NHL games. He scored 80 goals and 82 assists for 162 points. He was not there for his point scoring. He had 2,519 penalty minutes in his career. Kocur fought 217 times, regular season and postseason combined. And the most fights he ever had in a season came in 1986-87 with Detroit. He had 38 fights. 30 of those were in the regular season, and 8 of those fights came in the postseason. Yeah, he had 8 fights one year in the playoffs. There are entire playoffs nowadays where the entire NHL doesn't have 8 fights in the playoffs. Just Joey Kocur had 8 fights in the playoffs in 86-87. And that was back when fighting really didn't decrease in the playoffs like it does now. Now there's much less fighting nowadays in the playoffs than there is in the regular season, and there's barely even any in the regular season. Back then, there was just as much fighting in the playoffs as there were in the regular season. Didn't matter, postseason, regular season, the fighters fought. And that year that he had 8 playoff fights, 4 of them came in Detroit series against Edmonton when he fought Marty McSorley twice and Kevin McClellan twice. So that was a huge year fight-wise, not only for the NHL, but for Joey Kocur. His best offensive season came in 1989-90 with the Detroit Red Wings, where he had 36 points. He had 16 goals that year, a career high, and 20 assists, a career high, to get his career high in points. 6 times he went over the 200 penalty minute mark in the NHL. Most of those were at the beginning of his career in his first stint in Detroit. Kocur broke into the league with the Red Wings in 1984 and played in Detroit his first stint with the Red Wings into 1991. Then he went to the New York Rangers for a number of years from 91 to 96. He played 7 games with Vancouver in the 95-96 season. That's just a little blip. And then he went back to Detroit to finish his career in 96 from 96 to 99. Although by the end of his career, he was not fighting nearly as much as he did in his first few years in the league. But definitely, Kocur is mostly known as a Detroit Red Wing. When I hear Joey Kocur, I think of the Red Wings. I think of him playing alongside Bob Probert for a number of years. I think his best years came in his first stint with the Red Wings, that 84-91 stretch. This guy had an absolute hammer of a right hand. He knocked out a good number of guys. Most notably, the most famous one is when he knocked out Jim Kite, the good night Jim Kite call. Kocur was very, very feared on the ice by a lot of guys. People, he was fought a lot. He was very willing to fight. 217 fights in only 820 games. He fought a lot, but people didn't want to fight him because he wasn't huge. He was only 6 foot, 220 something pounds. It's not like he was a 6'6" giant, but he was an absolute animal, and he packed a huge punch in his right hand, and he would absolutely hammer guys, and he knocked out a number of players in his NHL career. So, Kocur, one of the best enforcers of those late 80s, early 90s Red Wings teams, went to New York and was an enforcer there. Feared guy throughout the league. huge punching power, a knockout threat every time that you drop the gloves with him, and he was not afraid to go after guys. If you made a hit on Steve Yzerman or a star Red Wings player, Kocur would come after you, and he didn't really care if you wanted to drop the gloves or not. If you didn't drop the gloves, he would just start throwing punches anyway, and that's, what being an enforcer entailed back in that time period. Now, if you did some of the things now that Joey Kocur did back then, you would get, suspended from the NHL for a long period of time. But back then, it was perfectly normal. It happened on a regular basis. And if you didn't want to fight, Kocur would just start throwing, and he would pound you if you did anything to any of the Red Wings star players. So he was an enforcer at his best, and it's good to finally get him in the Enforcer Hall of Fame because he absolutely deserves to be there. He was an absolute animal. So with that, Joey Kocur is now enshrined in my Enforcer Hall of Fame along with his longtime teammate Bob Probert. And that's pretty much it for this video. So like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media, check out offthewallhockey.com. All those links are down in the description below. If you'd like to further support the channel, the link to our Patreon as well as the link to our merchandise store are both down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you guys soon.